down to our last segment. Now we need to talk a little bit about points of leverage, if you will, or levers for change. And here's how this is going to look. What and who can facilitate the process of change? So we're going to talk about 7 levers for change. The first one, let's keep the human element involved to start. Who are your champions? Now you probably, I guess the easiest way for me to put this is think about, you probably already have people that are the cheerleaders, that are excited. Whether they're excited about the change or just naturally they're a cheerleader within your organization. They can even be frontline staff. So there's formal and informal champions. So what you need to do, or what we're suggesting that you do, is go back. Think again about all of those people within your organization, on your teams, on your staff. Who are the champions? Who are the ones that people just say hello and everybody's behind them? That kind of a thing. Find where the champions are, key in on those people, spend a little bit of extra time with them to explain, here's why we're doing the change, here's what the change is going to look like, here's our vision for the change. So take people that you already have. Now, once you've sorted those folks out, then it's very good to sit down and think about, where do I have some gaps? And who might you be able to train in as a champion? Or if you also want to call them the stakeholders that are fully invested. So they aren't necessarily the formalized leadership group. In fact, you're better off sometimes if they aren't. So that they can look almost like outsiders, so to speak, coming in and championing everybody, getting everyone to kind of follow them for the change. So look at your champions. That's our first lever. Here's lever number 2, environmental culture. Now I've talked a little bit about this already. I want to drop into it a little bit more because now I want to talk about it from a leverage standpoint. So if you realistically know what your culture is like, then you can anticipate who's going to buy in, who's not going to buy in, what that's going to look like, and how to make accommodations. So one of the things you need to look at is, as you realistically define your culture, what are the levers that are going to help you? We always have Friday morning breakfast and we bring in all the food. All right, so is that an opportunity, if that's part of your Friday culture, that's when you can come in, talk a little bit about change, talk a little bit about the process, check in with people. So you leverage what's already there. And then also take a bit of time, I keep saying this, is where are the gaps? We talked about this with the champions. Where's the gaps in your culture that you might be able to come in and just insert another little piece to help promote that change, to help support the people that are going through the change. And remember, consider it all the way down. Now, here's the last piece that needs to happen with your environmental culture, is remember those people that are in the senior executive level, the upper management, even the mid-management level. Everything you do, people watch. You know that. You're in those positions. So you are always the role model. So how are you consistently setting up that piece? How are you consistently across that executive level and that mid-management level, how are you consistently portraying the change? And here's what's important. Think of yourself as a champion here. Not only the excitement part of what's happening with the change, also the intrepidation. Because the more that you can add that human factor into your culture, they see that, this is really stressing me out, even at this management level. When they can see that, that gives them more permission to be able to share what's happening too. So share your excitement, share your intrepidation, create this all-inclusive kind of environment culture. And that's going to help a lot as people transition through. Here's lever 3, organizational structure and systems. How is your system set up? Now, this is We've talked about culture, all right? This is a little bit different. What's your current organizational structure? Is there anything changing within the new system? Chances are there is, as the change comes in. So part of this, as you look at your structure and your systems, this is what becomes your map. And does everybody understand the map? Do they understand who they can talk to this way? Do they understand who they can talk to this way? Is the message the same? Is the message the same? And then also, what is the more flat organizational structure that you have and system in which you have it? And then the third component of this is you have the teams. So you have these little orbs that are kind of floating around your organization. And how are those various teams connected? What does that look like? So you're looking at individuals here in this, and then consider each one of these people as a team. How is that all working? Who's the center? And here's another way I want you to think about structure for a minute, is individuals themselves feel like they are the center of the universe, center of their team. So how do you work this so that they feel they are inclusive, that they do have this support system, that the structure and the system manage it? How are you going to lever what you have in place? What else do you need to have? How do you have your champions linked? How do you have your stakeholders linked? How do you have your support systems linked? That's all part of organizational structure and systems. Let's look at the fourth lever now. It's called workforce alignment. I alluded to this a little bit in the last one when we were talking about organizational structure and systems. Let me hone in a little bit more. Organizational structure is based on workforce alignment. So do you have your people aligned? Do they know who they can go to up, down, and across? Are your champions aligned so that they've got a support system within that? So when one champion or one of your informal leaders goes out and says, yeah, I was just talking to this group of people, here's kind of what came up for me, they know within their alignment who else they could talk to, who are the other champions, so you can kind of work through this process. They can work through the process together. People know where their spot is. Part of what workforce alignment is about is, where's my place? I need to be in this place. If you remember on the last flip, they are the center of the universe. So where's my place in space? Where can I feel comfortable? How am I aligned within the workforce? Everybody needs to be aligned. Because here's what you're looking for. You're looking for investment in this whole change process. It's more than just compliance. Because compliance is like a yes ma'am, a yes sir. You told me to do it, fine, I'll do it. What you want to be able to do is work from the heart. So if people feel aligned, if people feel that they have a support system, they'll be investing. Here's our fifth lever. I've talked about this quite a bit already. I can't overemphasize it enough. Let's talk communication. It's very important that you have formal and informal meetings. So remember, this is a lever. So let's look at what you already have. Where are your formal meetings? Where are the staff meetings? How often do people meet? Where can you keep throwing in pieces, or you take 10 minutes at each one of those formal meetings? How's this change process going for you all? What's working? What's not working? That's important. So leverage what you have. Think too from another perspective. Large group meetings, small group meetings. Because some people may do better in small groups, just their work team. Now, some work teams are very large. So we're back to culture, if you want. Within these team meetings, what's the culture? Does everyone have a voice? Does everyone feel like they can be heard? Or if they can't do it within the meeting, where else can it happen? You might have to set up some one-on-ones. Because particularly if you have someone that's being kind of stout about the change, and they're now starting to impact others, is it time to sit down and talk with that employee? Figure out how that needs to look. Here's the other thing, is you want to make sure that you encourage your leaders to do informal meetings as often as possible, just to keep it in the conversation. Now, here's the thing. You can almost not have too much communication. The more the better. And sometimes you need to step back and look, is it too much? Like, I'm tired of talking about this change thing. All right, can we just get on with it? Can show up sometimes too. So you're marking that. You're tracking that all along the way to figure out how it's going to best work. Now, here's another piece that needs to happen with communication, because it's not just what they're going through. Pull that plan again. Remember, we talked about the plan way back in the first segment. The plan is important because you have your milestones, you have your benchmarks. What's going to be very important in your communication is to make sure that you mark those and let people know, hey everybody, we've hit our mark. Whoa, we're a couple of days ahead on this piece. Or we might even be behind, and here's what needs to happen. Give them the progress reports. It might come a little bit ad nauseum, and people might roll their eyes. The key is they're informed, so they can't come back and say to you, well, I didn't know, because you've got the information out. Here's one other piece that I think is very important, is make sure you celebrate the progress. Bring things in, encourage your leaders to sometimes say, or just show up with, I don't know, Starbucks, coffee and donuts or bagels. Or what I used to do sometimes when we'd make progress in a particular project I'd be working on, I'd show up with ice cream bars on a hot day because I knew everyone was still in the office. Those kind of spontaneous celebrations are almost the best because people aren't expecting it. So think about that. Now there's one other critical piece that we need to talk about here in communication, is setting the expectations. What can happen is if you've opened up the communication, theoretically everybody has their voice in, everything's going well. The problem is when, let's say if it's me speaking, here's my problem and here's how I want it to be and here's how I want it fixed. My expectation is just because I say it, that it's going to happen. That may not be true. You'll know that at your leadership level. So part of what you need to be able to do then is structure those expectations so that if you have to say no, you're saying no. You know what, Megara? That's a good idea. And, not a but, and probably that's not going to happen. Here's why it's not going to happen. What's the impact on you, knowing that it can't happen? So you've got to be able that when you're doing these meetings that people need to know just because they're speaking their truth and getting in their process, that doesn't necessarily mean that what they're saying is going to become part of the change. So that part gets a little tricky sometimes. And it's very important that you set those boundaries, set those expectations early enough. So I think I've said it enough. Make sure you communicate. That's a lever that's very critical. We're up to lever number 6, everyone. And here's what we've got. It's talking about accountability and rewards. So here's a piece, right, that's very important, is you have your benchmarks, all right? If we look at it logistically, you have the benchmarks for your accountability, so you have the very logistical piece that's set up. Now you need to think about what are some of the consequences if someone's not taking responsibility, and what does that look like? My suggestion is that you set up those consequences for accountability as far in advance as you can, that people know this is the step we have to make. If we don't make this step, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, and I'm not saying pointing the finger, like a parent at a child or something like that. It's just they need to know their boundaries again. What's the container in which you're operating this whole change process? So they know what they need to do, and if they don't do it, what the potential consequence is. And it needs to stay consistent across the entire organization. Explain it ahead of time as much as you can. Now, one of the pieces I want to throw in here, and we've been talking communication, all right? I've kind of belabored that to a degree with you all through these segments. And I've been talking about it mostly from a person-to-person, direct kind of communication. Remember, and you all know this, we've got texts, we've got emails. You can set up an intra website where people maybe can write in questions and they can even stay anonymous. And then the answers come back. Is there a way to do some of that? Suggestion boxes, feedback boxes. Hit every kind of angle, because some people may not be as verbal. They're more the thinkers. And often those thinkers can come up with some brilliant ideas. Or that very shy kind of quiet person may have an idea and they just can't voice it. Or they have, because they're such observers, are able to see what's really going on. What's a way that they can give some feedback too? Keep people accountable. Now, here's a piece within the accountability that this all fits in. My communication piece again here, is that they're accountable for communicating how they're getting through the change, how the change process is impacting them. So make the feedback an accountability piece. Hone it in. Now, I've talked a little bit about rewards already. What are going to be the rewards? And I want to talk now a little bit about some more of the informal rewards. Is there a way, not only bringing the ice cream bars and the donuts and Starbucks that I talked about earlier, what are some other rewards that can be even more spontaneous? For example, let's say a particular team of customer service people have met their goals. It's a Friday afternoon. You know by statistical fact that you hardly ever get any more calls coming in on a Friday afternoon. You can manage it as the leader. Hey everybody, we had a really good week. Things are happening. You know what? I can cover the phones. Go home early. I used to do that in one work setting I had, and people, every once in a while, I'd throw, you guys, I'll finish Friday, you guys go. I'm looking around like, seriously? Really? Yeah, the office is still open. I can handle the calls if anything comes in. Go home. That in itself just generates the change process and something that just shows up as a reward, that you've hit that human spirit again. Cool. All right. Wow. This is kind of neat. I'm kind of getting settled into this change. And remember, change isn't just going to happen when you're in the workplace. They go home. Some of this carries home. So how does that fit within the rest of their life? And when do they, if you can send them home early, that they have time to even process some of this at home or talk about some of this with others that are outside of just the work environment? Hold them accountable. Create some rewards, surprise them with some rewards sometimes, and that's where you're going to get the investment. All right, everyone, here is our seventh and final lever, training and development. So let's talk about the leverages, what's already in place. Within your organization, what training and development programs do you have? Again, I keep saying this, formal and informal, where you can pop in the pieces about change, where you can check in with people about the change process and how maybe that particular segment of training and development that your people are in is going to change because of the change. Who knows? However that needs to look. The other thing is look at where are your gaps. Do people have the right skill sets? Not only the pragmatic, tactical skill sets, the communication, oh, there's that word again, the communication skill sets to be able to manage the people that they're going to be working with, the changes that are going to be able to occur, how all of that comes together. So, lever 7 is look at what additional training might be needed. Do people have the skills? What are the specific behavioral skills and tactical skills that people need? Might you need to throw something in? Where might you find that place? Who could you involve to help with the training? So lever number 7, our final lever, is looking at training and development to help support your change process.